Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories.
Finger licking good.
It begins in a small farming town with a mosquito sucking blood from the arm of the young cowboy Caleb. He goes out for a few drinks with his friends when a pretty young drifter catches his attention. Flirting with the line that he's dying for a bite of her ice cream, the smitten maid just repeats the two words dying and bite. It's almost sunrise, so she asks Caleb for a ride to a trailer park but has him pull over in the middle of nowhere. She gets out to look at the stars, claiming that she'll still be here in a billion years when their last light reaches the earth. Having never met a girl like her before and thinking that she's just talking metaphorical, Caleb says that he'd like to still be here with her as well. He then pulls up at a farm to introduce May to his horse, but the terrified beast takes off running as animals don't like her much. Having been a bit distracted by Romeo over here, May realizes that it's nearly dawn and demands that Caleb take her home. Starting to get light outside, Caleb pulls over once again to ask for a kiss from May as he thinks this'll be the last time he sees her. She ends at biting Caleb's neck to ensure they'll meet again, then the bloody-lipped vampire runs home before the sun rises. Not understanding what just happened to him, Caleb's truck won't start, so he needs to walk home through the fields. As the sun begins to show, Caleb starts smoking and his body begins to break down as he slowly transforms into a vampire. His little sister Sarah points out Caleb's approaching to their father Loy when a tinted Winnebago swoops in and kidnaps him right off their property. Inside's 5 vampires, including the psychotic Severen, who threatens to cut off Caleb's face until May puts herself between them. She reveals he's already been turned into one of them, so they reluctantly agree to let him stay while concealing their RV away in a shed. The vamp Homer's much older than he appears and says it was a bad idea to turn Caleb, but he's the one who turned May, so he can't talk. She convinces their leader and former Confederate in the Civil War Jesse and his girlfriend Diamondback to give the new guy a week to prove that he's one of them. When the sun's gone down, Severen steals a new vehicle, fearing that their previous one would have been reported to the police. They burn the RV, which reminds Jesse about the time he started the Great Chicago Fire, before all going their separate ways to roam the night. Caleb tells May that he has to return home, but she says that he won't get very far, knowing that he needs to feed. Pained with a hunger for blood, Caleb enters a Greyhound station hoping to buy a bus ticket home, but he can't afford it. He buys a chocolate bar to try help quench the bloodthirst, but it just makes him feel sicker and hungrier. A plainclothes officer pulls Caleb aside, believing that he's under the influence, but when hearing that he's just trying to get home, the sympathetic cop gives him money for a ticket. Not long into the trip, he begins feeling worse than he can handle and tells the bus driver to pull over. He stumbles back to where May's been sat waiting for him to return, and she lets Caleb feed from her wrist to regain his strength. Now completely revitalized, the couple begin kissing again before running off hand in hand into the night. The next day, Loy visits the sheriff to check on the investigation, but they've had no success except for finding the burnt-out Winnebago. Unsatisfied with the police efforts, the father takes his daughter and travels around nearby towns asking if anybody's seen his son. That night, Caleb gets concerned when he tries phoning home to no answer, as Loy and Sarah are both out searching for him. He questions what they're meant to do now that they're vampires, which May replies with whatever they feel like doing until the end of time. Needing to kill if he's going to survive, Caleb says he's not a murderer, but is told by May to just rely on his instincts, as the night has a price. Nearby, Severen's shown looking dapper than ever in his new clothes and out on the prowl for some victims. He gets picked up by a couple of cowgirls who he invites out for some drinks and presumably kills off screen. Homer's approach to hunting is to feign death so that he can drink the blood of the first concerned citizen that he sees. Jesse and Diamondback reminisce about the night he turned her into a vampire, but neither can remember how many years ago it was. They pull over for a tasty-looking hitchhiker, but it's an ambush that the foolish young man and his friend has set up. As the one on board begins barrel diving into Diamondback's cleavage, Jesse comments that the pair are going to look good with their faces removed. Caleb and May seek out a trucker for his first attempt, who teaches them about driving a semi and not to brake too fast or you'll jackknife the trailer. Caleb gets out feeling sick and is unable to follow through with killing the friendly driver, so May does it instead and fills up on his blood. She then allows Caleb to drink from her wrist like a giant blood bag, but he almost takes too much, so she pulls away before he kills her. Another week later and the new guy's still unblooded, so they're all ready to kill him, but May convinces them to give him another chance. Jesse and Diamond give him only one more night to perform, while Severen says that if he joins them, then they become his new parents. That night, the gang visit a bar intending to start something between Caleb and one of the patrons for him to feed on. Severen makes fun of a man with a goatee and spits a shot in his face, but pulls Caleb in front of his hit to show him what he's capable of. He tells Caleb to punch the man, and it sends him flying across the bar, impressing even himself with his new abilities. Jesse requests that a waitress leave a glass with no bottle, and then Diamond cuts the woman's throat to be drained into it. Severen's the messy eater, but first pretends to be choked out by a patron, but the man's strength really has no effect on him. He crushes his skull between his hands, then in a contrast to how his vampire parents feed, he covers himself in the man's blood. When the bartender shoots Caleb, of all people, it's little more than a flesh wound, leaving the bartender to reload while Severen deals with him. Wearing spurs, he slices the man's throat with his heel while a recovering patron attempts to run away but gets shot in the back by Homer. With only one patron left alive in the whole bar, May approaches him but says that he's reserved for Caleb to feed on. The terrified young man overhears this and leaps out of a window, so the gang tells Caleb to go after him. Still unwilling to kill anybody, Caleb runs the man down, but he feels bad and just releases him, endangering them all. The gang burn down the building and find a new vehicle while knowing that the patron will get the police. They again want to kill Caleb. As the sun's rising, they black out the windows before catching on fire and take shelter in a nearby motel. The old owner recognizes Jesse from 50 years earlier, so the vampire tells the man to book him a reservation for another 50 years from now. They begin to sleep the day away when police arrive at the motel demanding that the murderers come outside. Realizing that it's still daytime when Severen burns his face, they decide to have a gunfight with police in order to make it to their vehicle. Beginning with Severen firing a shotgun through the front door, both sides open fire when Caleb notices a van with blacked out windows. He leaps outside with a sheet over himself, where a young officer covering the rear fills him full of bullets as he makes a run for the van. The sun sets him on fire, but he manages to make it inside and rescues the gang by crashing into the rear wall of the building. The vampires all jump inside the van, and then Caleb drives right through the front wall of the motel, evading the police. The compromised gang switch vehicles again before traveling to a completely new town and checking into another motel. They're all impressed with Caleb's life-threatening effort that saved the gang, so he buys some more time to prove himself able to feed. Severen gives Caleb one of his murder weapons as a sign of respect before he goes outside with May to enjoy the last few hours of darkness. Questioned if she misses the sun, May says that she doesn't even remember it, as it's been 4 years since Homer bit her. As everyone is playing a game of cards, Homer goes outside for the last few minutes of nighttime when he meets Caleb's sister. Since Homer looks like a young boy, it's easy to convince other kids to join him in his room, unaware of Sarah's relation to Caleb. Severen's sent to collect Loy, and when Caleb returns at sunrise, he finds his kid's sister and their father having tracked him down. Caleb tells the two that he's remaining with the gang and asks Jesse to let his family go, promising that they won't tell the police. Homer refuses to let Sarah leave and says that it's only fair he gets to turn her into a vampire like May did with Caleb. Loy pulls his gun and shoots Jesse in the stomach, but he just spits out the bullet and puts it into Loy's pocket. He begins crushing his hand when Sarah breaks free from Homer's weak grip and opens the door to let the morning sunlight in. Caleb wraps himself in a blanket and escapes the motel with his family, but is unable to explain his situation clearly. He does it best by showing that his flesh burns in the sunlight and then asks to be taken back to the farm instead of the hospital. Since Loy's a vet, Caleb asks him to give him a blood transfusion just like he would a horse, in hopes of removing the vampire curse. Using his father's blood, it luckily works, because later Sarah opens the barn door bathing him in sunlight, but it has no effect. Caleb eagerly takes to it and that night is able to enjoy his dinner while his sister waits upstairs to have a bedtime story read by her big brother. Hearing the squeak of the swing, he steps outside to find May wondering why he left them, but Caleb says that he belongs with his family. They embrace each other with a hug, but May feels the warmth in his flesh, which causes her to feel abandoned and take off. When Caleb goes back inside, he finds Sarah's been abducted and all of their trucks have had their tires slashed. He rides into town on one of his horses searching for signs of the gang when he suddenly gets bucked off at the sight of Severen. Pretending to help him up, he tosses Caleb down the street, who when recovered flags down the next approaching truck. The driver gets shot in the head, so Caleb practices what he learned from his almost victim to run down Severen, who just takes it. He survives the impact with only minor wounds and climbs onto the hood, ripping at the engine with his hands. Caleb takes his first victim's advice again on what not to do and suddenly brakes before leaping out of the truck. The heavy trailer jackknifes into the cab, exploding and killing Severen, who drops his other spur as a trophy for Caleb. Jesse then appears with May to distract him while Diamondback sneaks up behind him, readying her knife. When Caleb inquires about Sarah's location, she breaks away of Homer's weak grip again and warns her brother to duck, causing the throwing knife to go down Jesse's throat. It does no damage, but Diamondback allows Caleb to run away with Sarah so that Jesse can have the final kill. May blocks his shots, allowing the siblings to escape to the farm on foot, while May has no other option but to join her vampire parents in chasing them. While he's running through the field, Caleb trips over, so the gang swiftly snatches Sarah up before driving off. They frantically rush to cover up the windows as the sun rises, but in the middle of the chaos, May grabs Sarah and leaps out of the back window. While burning in the sun, she runs with Sarah toward Caleb while Homer jumps out and begins chasing after them. Jesse and Diamondback turn around while a smoking May reaches Caleb, who shields her with a blanket from the scorching sun. Homer doesn't make it and explodes in the sunlight while their vampire parents drive toward Caleb and Sarah intending to run them down. They aren't able to make it before the sun sets them both on fire and the car slowly rolls off the road before exploding. Sometime later May wakes up in the daylight as Caleb successfully cured her vampirism with another blood transfusion. She tells him that she's afraid but Caleb comforts her and says not to be as it's just the sun. And the movie ends.
Well, you people should stay up late.
We keep odd hours.